What if I told you the single most important nutrient for your brain isn't protein, omega-3s, magnesium, or even caffeine? It's water. Not because water keeps you alive, so you already know that, but because every thought you have, every memory you form, every emotion you feel, and every decision you make depends on the movement of electrically charged particles through water. Put another way, your brain isn't just a biological computer. It's an electrical network operating inside a highly organized liquid environment. Today we'll dive into a fascinating frontier at the intersection of neuroscience and cellular biology, the hidden relationship between hydration, electrolytes, organized water, and human cognition. Because hydration isn't only about staving off thirst, it may literally influence the speed and fidelity of thought itself. Chapter 1. Your brain is mostly water. Start with a basic fact. The human brain is roughly 3/4 water. That water isn't sitting there passively. It fills the spaces inside and between every neuron, glial cell, and synapse. It bathes membranes, surrounds proteins, and forms the medium through which ions travel. Most people only think about hydration in the context of athletes, sweating, heat, and performance. But long before dehydration shows up as fatigue on a treadmill, it alters cognitive performance. A relatively small change, a loss of just 1 to 2% of body water, has been linked in multiple studies to measurable declines in attention, working memory, reaction time, mood, decision-making, and what researchers call mental endurance. This doesn't mean your brain physically shrinks like a deflating balloon. Rather, small shifts in hydration change the chemical and electrical microenvironment neurons depend on. Changes in blood volume, plasma osmolality, and the ionic composition of the extracellular fluid all alter how readily neurons can form and transmit signals. Chapter 2: The Electrical Brain. Many people imagine neurons as tiny telephones passing messages. The reality is more like an intricate lightning network. Neurons communicate through tightly controlled electrical impulses. Those impulses are voltage changes across cell membranes driven by the flow of charged atoms, ions. Sodium and potassium ions shuttle in and out of cells through specialized channels to create and reset the electrical gradients that underlie action potentials. Calcium plays a pivotal role in triggering neurotransmitter release at synapses. Magnesium modulates receptor sensitivity and enzymatic activity. Chloride helps set inhibitory tone. If those ions can't move as they should, but because their concentrations are off, because membranes aren't operating optimally, or because the liquid medium is altered, neural signaling falters. No ion movement, no neural signaling. No neural signaling, no thoughts, which is why hydration and electrolyte balance are not peripheral concerns. They are central to the language of the nervous system. Chapter 3. Why electrolytes matter. When most people hear electrolytes, they picture bright sports drinks, but electrolytes are fundamental to every nerve cell's ability to generate and transmit electrical activity. Imagine sodium and potassium as the push and pull that makes neurons speak. The sodium-potassium pump and ion channels maintain voltage differences that let a neuron fire rapidly and reliably. Calcium is the switch at synapses that causes neurotransmitters to be released into the tiny gaps between cells. Magnesium subtly tunes receptors and ion channels so the system doesn't go haywire. Chloride works as a brake to dampen overexcitation. Hydration without electrolytes can be counterproductive. Drink large volumes of plain water in a short time and you risk diluting plasma sodium, a condition called hyponatremia, which can impair brain function and be dangerous. The goal isn't simply more water, it's electrical balance. Water plus the right mix of dissolved ions that maintain the brain's electrochemical milieu. Chapter 4: The Mystery of Structured Water. Here we step into more controversial territory: structured water. Be careful, the internet has plenty of exaggerated claims. That said, there is legitimate science showing that water behaves differently close to biological surfaces. When water molecules sit adjacent to membranes, proteins, or other cellular structures, they can form more ordered layers compared to the bulk water farther away. Some researchers describe these regions as liquid crystalline or interfacial water. They can have different properties, altered viscosity, charge characteristics, and the way they interact with solutes, than free water. Why should we care? Neurons are fundamentally membrane-based electrical devices, and every membrane sits inside a hydration shell. The structure and dynamics of that shell can influence how ions approach channels, how proteins fold and function, and how electrical charge is transmitted across tiny distances. The full implications are still being debated and studied, but one clear lesson emerges. Water inside the body is not an inert backdrop. It participates actively in biology. Chapter 5. The Speed of Thought. Picture a single neuron firing. Channels open, ions rush, voltage changes, neurotransmitters release into the synapse, and the signal propagates to the next cell. Multiply that across billions of neurons firing thousands of times a second, and you have the living electrical orchestra that is cognition. This entire process depends on four pillars: water as the conductive medium, electrolytes to carry charge, intact membranes and channels to direct flow, and energy to power the pumps and restore gradients. If any of these pillars weakens, signals slow, misfire, or fail. Think of the brain as a vast city. Neurons are buildings and synapses are roads. Water and electrolytes are the underground infrastructure, the wiring, pipes, and power stations that keep traffic moving. When infrastructure falters, deliveries are late, traffic jams form, and the city's efficiency plummets. Chapter 6: Hydration and Brain Fog. Who hasn't experienced brain fog? That uncomfortable haze where concentration slips, processing feels sluggish, and decisions come harder than they should. Plenty of culprits can contribute: poor sleep, chronic stress, inflammation, metabolic issues. Hydration is often overlooked. You may not feel thirsty, yet your neural efficiency can already be compromised. Researchers consistently find that hydration status affects attention, alertness, executive function, and processing speed. These effects are usually subtle, cumulative, and sometimes reversible, the sort of thing that can shave points off performance in demanding tasks or make sustained focus feel like a grind. Beyond the immediate electrochemical effects, hydration also influences blood viscosity and circulation, which can alter cerebral blood flow. There are emerging lines of research suggesting that fluid dynamics in the brain's interstitial spaces and cerebrospinal fluid, processes involved in waste clearance, depend on proper hydration and may be most active during sleep. While the science is evolving, the practical takeaway is simple: keeping your body's fluid and electrolyte balance in a healthy range supports clearer thinking. Chapter 7: The Longevity Connection. What does hydration have to do with aging? Potentially a great deal. Aging is not merely the passage of years, it's the gradual loss of biological efficiency, less effective cellular communication, reduced resilience, and decreased adaptability. Healthy aging depends on preserving metabolic balance, maintaining vascular health, and keeping neural networks robust. Efficient cellular communication is an essential underpinning of all those processes. If water and electrolytes are the medium and language through which cells converse, then supporting that medium is foundational to long-term brain health. This isn't an overblown claim. Hydration alone won't stop aging, and electrolytes aren't a panacea, but they are part of the basic infrastructure that must be maintained if you want to preserve cognitive function and resilience over decades. Consider it preventative maintenance for the body's most complex network. Chapter 8: The OXYZEN Perspective. At OXYZEN Health Intelligence, we explore sleep, recovery, heart rate variability, stress, and metabolic resilience. Below those metrics lies a shared principle: communication. The body is constantly exchanging information between brain and heart, among cells, and between organs. Much of that communication occurs in an electrically conductive, highly hydrated environment. The future of health is not only symptom tracking, it's about understanding and optimizing the systems that allow biology to operate efficiently. Hydration is one of those systems, not flashy, not trendy, but essential. When you optimize the medium and the signals that flow through it, many downstream systems perform better. Practical reflections: a note, not medical advice. Pay attention to thirst cues and to the more subtle cognitive signs of dehydration: slowed thinking, difficulty sustaining attention, and fatigue. Remember balance. Both dehydration and excessive plain water intake without sufficient electrolytes can harm function. Severe dilution of sodium, hyponatremia, is a real risk in extreme situations. Consider hydration as part of a broader lifestyle strategy, along with sleep, nutrition, stress management, and regular movement that supports neural efficiency and long-term brain health. Final thoughts. If there's one idea I want you to carry away, it's this: water is not merely a fluid, and electrolytes are not just minerals. Together, they create the microscopic environment in which every thought, memory, movement, and feeling becomes possible. Your brain isn't merely floating in water, it is powered by water and the ions dissolved within it. Recognizing and respecting that relationship may change how we think about hydration, performance, cognition, and longevity, not as a single magic bullet, but as a foundational system that enables everything else. I'm Dr. Yende. Thank you for joining me for another episode of OXYZEN Health Intelligence. Sometimes the most profound technologies in human biology are the ones we've taken for granted all along. I'll see you in the next episode.